Hey guys, so I wanted to comment directly on the new guidelines of diversity for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences directly. I've spoken about it a little bit in reactions to statements that other people have made, specifically Bill Maher, and I think they suck. I think the guidelines are pandering and I think they're stupid. And that's what this video is going to be, me going down the line of what and who I think is stupid. And I'm going to end it on a positive note and say who I think is actually a positive with this. So first of all, there's the guidelines have four parts, and the four parts I'll include in the descriptions a link to the guidelines and maybe even the article. I think it was from Deadline where I read about it from. And anyway, the guidelines are basically four parts, and the four parts consist of having certain diversity requirements with the actors, diversity requirements within the production, the distribution, and then there's a fourth part that has something to do with the audience. And it's, but the parts that people are really focusing on is the first two parts that have to do with the diversity within the actors, and to a lesser extent, the people who are the actual production, people in production of the movies. Now, the third part, I'm actually, the third guideline, which has to do with apprenticeships and internships and paid apprenticeships and internships, I don't really have as much a problem with that. Matter of fact, that may actually be a good idea because it's basically getting people on the ground floor and maybe the opportunity to work their ways up or whatever, right? But so first of all, who sucks first? The Academy sucks. And the reason the Academy, I'm saying they suck, is for years they have ignored black stories. They tripped over themselves. And by the way, these guidelines are basically like if you want to be nominated or considered for nominated for the Best Picture. That's what the guidelines are. I should have said that in the beginning. So anyway, for years the Academy has ignored movies, art with people of color. That's nothing new. That's kind of the history of this country. But for years, we're like, okay, you have actors, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Angela whatever, right? And I'm not even talking about other actors of color. And if I'm excluding these actors, it's not intentional. Latin, Asian, whatever. These stories are being untold, right? I'll just go within my lifetime, just to give an example. The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg, not a single Academy Award. Great movie, whatever, right? I know it's all subjective. Malcolm X, Denzel Washington. Now, what movie did Denzel Washington get a Best Supporting Actor for Glory, which is a great movie, but ironically, well, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'll just say the Academy sucks. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to overcompensate. It's almost like they're virtue signaling. And I usually don't like when people say virtue signaling, but they're virtue signaling. And there really is a thing. If would once upon a time in Hollywood be made under these current standards, that these guidelines which are going to be implemented in 2024, not all stories will involve people of color, LGBT people, disabled people. Is just the reality. Now, the flip side of that is that Hollywood has ignored these people or erased the history. And I'll give just quick examples. A Beautiful Mind, John Nash was by. So there is an erasure of people, of underrepresented groups from these stories. And how do you counter that? And I guess that's going to go to my next thing that sucks. But let's not ignore that even within these stories, they have erased these elements or these people. It's kind of going back to the thing I was saying about Bill Maher with denying the presence of people of color in World War I. Okay, so the second group of people who suck are just people. And people suck because our attitudes towards movies and what we expect to see in movies. Now, as I made another video, the requirements or the guidelines for diversity, the irony is that, so just to say this, so I think it's one of the main characters in the movie. Either the story has to be a story centered around an underrepresented group. So this isn't just people of color, but an underrepresented group. But if it isn't, I believe it's at least one of the main characters has to be from an underrepresented group. It's one of the guidelines. And I think it's maybe 1 of 6 or 30% have to be of the secondary character, something like that. So if you look at a lot of movies that have been centered around people of color, the irony, or other underrepresented groups, the irony is that they've actually been applying this for white actors. Like Glory, I've mentioned already. Robert Shaw, who was the officer in charge of the I think it's the 53rd Men of Honor. I've mentioned that one, I think twice. Robert De Niro, they put him in there. He's not a real character. He wasn't a real person, but whatever. And Kevin Costner in Hidden Figures. Well, the thing is that these people, even if the Robert Shaw did exist for the Massachusetts Regiment, the first black regiment in the Civil War, which is what the movie's about. And even though Robert De Niro's character didn't exist, and even though Kevin Costner's character didn't exist, it's not ahistorical. So putting these characters in these movies, why do I say people suck? Well, because it's expected. And when they make these movies, they know that a large white audience, they need to have a white actor to latch on to feel sympathy, or to feel maybe the word, not sympathy, but empathy for the story. And if you don't believe that, not everybody, not everybody's a monster, but I think of the example of the Hunger Games a few years back, where when people found, when Rue was cast by a black actress, there are people explicitly saying that, I felt sorry for her, I felt sad for her in the book. I don't feel that way about her anymore. And the irony is that if you actually read the book, she's clearly described as being black in the book. So people suck because, they come into a movie and they have their prejudice. And then when they make movies, they, even if a director or a writer wants to cast someone who, may be of a different race or ethnicity, or just not as, not conventionally attractive, they know that, for better or worse, that people may react negatively to that. And also, it's like, what are the stories being told? So, can you tell the story of Asian people, Latinos, large, if you're trying to get those dollars, can you do that? Will people go see those movies? And the other thing about people sucking is that even if you try to tell stories and you try to, maybe let's change the ethnicity, tweak a little bit, people get upset by that. But that's cultural exchange. And even though this cultural exchange, it can go one way, it can't go the other. So you can have, the Last Samurai, where you have Tom Cruise being the best samurai in Japan, even though he's a white man. You can have like a white guy being the best Native American. You have a white guy being the best rapper, which I know. Eminem is he's definitely one of the top 5 rappers, but I'm not going to go on a tangent. But you can have that, and audiences will be okay with that. So people kind of suck with that. And I'm not going to put it all on white people. There's plenty of people of color who kind of have, honestly, a bit of self-hate with that. So I'm going to end it with this, because this is going on too long. And I told myself I wasn't going to do this long, whatever form video, because not that I have a problem with long form videos, but I just don't want to do long form videos talking about movies. And I kind of wanted to do other things. And if I do talk about movies, be kind of more fun with it. But the other thing I wanted to end with this is that someone who doesn't suck, and this may be kind of controversial to people, is Quentin Tarantino. Now, he sucks for certain reasons, but he doesn't suck in this regard. And I'm not ignoring the use of the N-word in his movies. But there's an irony, because in that video that the first video I made, the only video I had that has several thousand views, it's Bill Maher talking to 2 other individuals, and one of those guys is Quentin Tarantino. Now, the funny thing is, as far as the first guideline that the Academy has set, for the most part, Quentin Tarantino has done this throughout his career, right? So if you look at Quentin Tarantino's movies, I think with maybe the exception of Reservoir Dogs and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, all of his movies have prominent actors of color. And you could say, well, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's a cameo by Bruce Lee. But he, not only that, but he has rewritten stories to include actors of color. So what do I mean? Jackie Brown. So Jackie Brown is based on an Elroy Leonard book, or Elmore Leonard, excuse me, book Rum Punch. And her name in the book is not Jackie Brown. I can't remember her name, but she's a white woman. And Quentin Tarantino, being a fan of blaxploitation movies, he put Pam Grier. He changed it to Jackie Brown as kind of an homage to Foxy Brown, and he cast Pam Grier for this. And the thing about Quentin Tarantino is that he is a fan of Japanese culture, Japanese cinema. He's a fan of black culture, black cinema. He's a fan of all of these things. And what a lot of producers and actors and people in general is they forget where these things come from. There's a whole history of erasing people from their culture, queer people, people of color, whatever, right? But Quentin Tarantino, he's like, I'm borrowing all these elements from all these different things, from westerns, from blaxploitation, martial arts movies, kung fu movies, and I'm going to acknowledge where this comes from. So when Kill Bill, yeah, he's homage to Japanese culture. He puts Sonny Chiba in the movie. He has an homage to classic Chinese kung fu movie, whatever, right? So Quentin Tarantino, ironically, has been very respectful of this and has done what other creators haven't done. And in fact, I mean, he'll put black characters in movies where it's not even a factor. Their blackness is not a factor. I think of the Glorious Bastards, where the young woman, the woman getting revenge, her lover, her partner, it's a black francophone. There's no point in that, and his blackness didn't really come up. But Quentin Tarantino was like, man, whatever, right? So. Actually, I'll conclude with this point. I'll just wrap it up. So the Academy Awards, the Academy sucks. These standards are dumb. It's pandering, and I don't know how you fix it, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically do something with prejudice. And maybe this is the thing that's required. Maybe you have to force it on people. But I think it is unfortunate because not every story that someone wants to tell is going to really involve underrepresented groups. But I am also sick of hearing people like Bill Maher complain, and recently Richard Dreyfuss says, well, these standards make me vomit. And, Richard Dreyfuss, first of all, no one's really cared what Richard Dreyfuss has said for years. Nothing against Richard Dreyfuss. He has done some, he's made some classic movies, and he was on a big push for teaching more civics in school, which was good. But no, who gives a shit what Richard Dreyfuss says? And the thing about Richard Dreyfuss is, like, did you feel this way when movies were being excluded? So did you feel this way when Do the Right Thing was ignored, when Malcolm X was ignored, when Denzel Washington was ignored, when all these black actors or these black works were being ignored for decades? That didn't make you vomit, but now you're vocal about this. And I don't know how helpful that is, but whatever, right? So I really don't have anything else to say about the whole thing. I think it sucks. Unfortunately, people kind of suck, and I don't know what else to do about it. And like I said, it is what it is. And this is probably the only video I'll end with Quentin Tarantino, like I said, not ignoring his problems in the past with throwing around the N-word like a rapper. He's kind of one of the good ones with this, for lack of a better way to say it. Anyway, thank you.